They saw him every day, a bent old man in faded coveralls, pushing a mop across cold marble floors, polishing doorknobs that no one noticed, nodding politely, quietly stepping aside as young executives rushed past. To them, he was the janitor, just the janitor, not worth a second glance, a silent fixture in a world of ambition and noise. But the janitor, Mr. Hallworth, noticed everything. He watched how the intern spoke only when spoken to, how some smiled with kindness and others sneered with power. He noticed who left trash on the floor, assuming someone else would pick it up. And he noticed the one young man who always held the door open, even for him. Mr. Hallworth moved slowly, but his mind was still sharp. He remembered every corner of this building, not just because he cleaned it, but because he built it. 40 years ago, this place was nothing but gravel and weeds, and Hallworth, a young contractor, had invested every penny he had into the land. Brick by brick, he built. Room by room, he designed. Not just a building, a vision. But he had never cared much for titles. He let his business partner take the spotlight. Let the corporation grow. Let his name fade quietly into the paperwork, like a whisper in a boardroom storm. Now, in his final years, he had returned. Not to boast, not to reclaim, but to watch. To see what had become of the place he had once dreamed into being. No one knew, no one cared, except for one, Daniel. Daniel was an intern, clumsy, nervous, but kind. He always greeted the janitor with a smile. Once he even brought him a cup of coffee on a rainy morning. "You're out here every day, sir," he had said. "You deserve to stay warm too." Mr. Hallworth had smiled, a rare thing, like the sun breaking through storm clouds. He didn't need the coffee, but he cherished the gesture. Over weeks they spoke more, about life, about struggle, about how the world rarely rewards kindness, but that's no reason to stop being kind. One day, the company's CEO, a sharp-suited man who never made eye contact with anyone below his rank, announced major layoffs. The mood was heavy. Fear crackled in the air. Daniel was among those let go. He packed his things slowly. Others avoided eye contact. Some even smirked. Survival of the fittest, they thought. But the janitor approached him with an envelope. He said, "This is for you." Inside was a letter, a recommendation, a job offer, and a check, far too large for a janitor's salary. Daniel looked up, confused. "I don't understand." Mr. Hallworth simply nodded. "You treated a nobody like a somebody. Turns out this nobody owns the building." And with that, he walked away, mop in hand, back to the marble floors, back to the silence he preferred. Word spread like wildfire. Executives were stunned. He was the Mr. Hallworth, the forgotten co-founder, the owner. But by the time they realized, he had already vanished. Retired, perhaps, or maybe just walking another building, watching, listening, waiting to see if the world still had room for goodness. They say power reveals who you are, but so does humility. Mr. Hallworth never wore a crown, yet he ruled with kindness. And in the end, he left behind more than a building. He left behind a lesson. Never measure a person by their clothes, their job, or their silence, because sometimes the quietest soul in the room owns the room.